Hello. Thank you for joining us this morning for today's NEASC Forum, Supporting Student Mental Wellness. My name is Beth Hamilton. I'm a Senior Associate Director with NEASC, and I'm so glad you're able to join us today for this really important and timely topic. We're pleased to have presenters with us today who bring an impressive depth of experience to today's topic. They're here to walk us through some key practices at their own schools and effective approaches for supporting student mental wellness within their schools and communities. We hope that the insights shared today will help you develop more effective tools to serve your own students. And now we have so much to talk about. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Allison, who will moderate the panel and get us started.
Thank you so much, Beth. Good morning, everyone. I'm Allison Geary, Director of Accreditation and School Improvement for the Public Schools at NEASC. So glad to be with you this morning to be able to share this information. I'm super excited about the conversation and all of the information and insights that our panelists have to share. So let's jump right in and get started. I'm going to ask all of the panelists to introduce themselves and give you a brief description of the context of their schools and their role within their schools and districts. So why don't we start with our participants from Fairhaven, Tara and Tracy, and then we'll go with Kim from West Warwick.
Good morning. I'm Tara Kohler. I'm the Superintendent of Schools in Fairhaven, Massachusetts in the United States. We have a very small population, as it turns out, in Massachusetts. We have about 2,000 students. And our students are all from different backgrounds. We struggle with a lot of, poverty in our community, but one of the great gifts that we have is the working together to create that support. And we've done that through Wayfinder, which we're excited to talk about today. Prior to this, I did serve on the Safe and Supportive Schools Commission in Massachusetts and really use the 6 levers as tenets to the belief system in our leadership here in Fairhaven. So we're excited to be here today.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tracy Higgins. I also work in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. I started as an English teacher at the high school, and in 2019, I started working on curriculum and instruction across the district with an emphasis on early literacy. And in the work that I did over the years in curriculum and instruction, it became apparent that one of the things we could do better to support our students is really build a strong social and emotional learning program and community. So we started to research and we found Wayfinder and we implemented it. We started the implementation 2 years ago and we're still tweaking things, but we're really excited to keep going with it. We're seeing definite improvements.
Kim?
Okay. Sorry. Hi, I'm Kimberly Oakes, the Social Emotional Learning Instructional Coach in West Warwick, Rhode Island. We're a small urban district with about 3,700 students, K to 12. Before this role, I taught 2nd grade, so teachers knew me as someone who understood the classroom. But when I stepped in this position, there'd never been an SEL coach before. So typically we had SEL, second step, but it was really just boxes delivered to teachers with no training. So my first goal as a coach was to connect with teachers across the district, offer professional development for their wellness and growth, and kind of be a person that they reached out to. And my hope is always when I walk into a classroom, their first thought is like, oh God, Kim's here. So because they know that I'll bring support and relief. I earned my master's in social emotional learning and became a CASEL fellow. CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning in our country. It's the national leader in SEL research, so it's a really awesome opportunity. And this fall, I've been invited to present at Yale's implementation conference because we have adopted the ruler approach. So I will be focusing on proactive and practical strategies that help students regulate emotions and bring their best selves to learning. Beyond our district, I teach nationally, working with the American Federation of Teachers to update their trauma-sensitive practice course. And we're adding equity, bias, play-based learning, and mental health challenges to that. And then most recently, I was trained as a youth mental health first aid trainer to help educators recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health challenges.
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot in that response. Lots of acronyms, lots of programs. So we'll break that down over the next hour. And we'll try in the chat to put some of those resources. So so far we've talked about Wayfinder, Ruler, Castle. So those are the kinds of things that we'll try to, focus on, make sure that we get those resources in the chat. Thank you so much. Let's hear from Tim and then Jess and Crystal.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Timothy Goodwin. Our school is a small K-5 independent school in Hartford, Connecticut. It's a relatively low income community, high poverty, food insecurity, etc. We opened in 2020, and the concept was to bring as much mental health support to our school as possible. It was one of our core values. And today we'll be talking about some of the strategies, such as spending time out in a local park in nature, partnering with a local mental health agency to provide group, individual, and family therapy, and some other strategies to get our students feeling resilient and empowered.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Jess?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Matzkin. I'm from the Loomis Chaffee School, which is a 9 through 12 boarding school in Windsor, Connecticut. We have about 740 students. About 520 of those are from all over the United States and from actually all over the world. About 12% of our students are international. We have about 40% students of color. We have a community that about a third of our students are on financial aid. So it's a pretty diverse community that I work in. I am the director of well-being, and I had formerly been a school counselor and then a dean of students. And so this has been a nice collaboration of all of those roles. And now my goal is to focus on students thriving. We're really looking at proactive approaches. We've created space on campus, physical space on campus, and programming in order for our students to thrive.
Thank you. Crystal?
Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Barnes. I'm the head of the high school at the International School of Havana. We are a very small, private, not-for-profit international school that serves the children of the diplomatic and foreign business community here in Havana. My campus is the grades 9 through 12 students, and we run the IGCSE, the IBDP programs, as well as we are piloting the Global Impact Diploma as part of our high school diploma. As the head of high school, I'm responsible for academics and well-being of students and staff, and I am coming to you here from our mindfulness room, which is one of the initiatives that we implemented here at school. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, panelists. I hope all of our participants can see we have some very well-qualified people today to talk about this initiative. So we're going to start out by asking all of our panelists, what's one strategy or initiative that you have undertaken in the past several years that has had a significant impact on students' mental health? And we're going to ask them to describe the strategy and the impact. So I'm going to start with Tim and ask Tim to share his strategy, and then we'll go to Crystal, and then we'll see where we are then.
Thank you. So I think one of our strongest initiatives was to spend time outdoors in nature. We have a park, which is very close to our school. It's about 2 blocks away. We walk to the park, we cross streets, we have our yellow outfits, we have a stop sign and all those types of safety measures. But once we get into the park, there's a road that is not accessible to cars, there's fields, there's trees, and we tell the students, just go. Our students are over fenced. So there's no fences, there's no boundaries other than we need to see you. And we let the children explore. You would not believe the sense of pressure that is relieved when students get to climb a tree and there's no one saying, stop, don't climb that tree. We allow them to experience life. We have little human beings who are learning to be bigger human beings. So we want to provide experiences that allow them to be themselves. If they find a frog, they can pick it up. If they find a tree, they can climb it. If they find a hole, we can all look at the hole in the ground and try to figure out what lives there. We also spend time, the last thing I'll say about that is it's not just this freedom we provide, but we provide a sense of calm and peace, either before, during, or after. Our students have been learning to sit in a meditation circle. We get in what we call our centering position, crisscross applesauce, and we sit, we start 3 minutes, 4 minutes, it's a challenge. Our students can now sit in quiet, in a circle, in a centering position for up to 15 minutes without saying a word. For kindergarten to fifth grade urban students, people would say that's not really possible, but it is so possible when you provide the structure. A little bit of a challenge. Can we get to 10 minutes today? Can we get to 15 minutes today? And everyone says, we could do 20. And I understand, no, you're not going to get to 20, but we can go for 15. And when they do it, there's a tremendous sense of accomplishment. And then, of course, we release them to nature and to their own exploration. So these are just simple strategies in the outdoors. We're fortunate to have a park nearby. There's many more strategies I could describe in our outdoor environment, but I'll keep it to that for now. And just know that, we as teachers also have this unique ability to creatively think when we're outdoors, and we can come up with activities, the students come up with activities they can do to help promote a sense of resilience and peace.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. And thanks for reminding us that your context is K through 5, right? So these are younger children that we're talking about. All right, Crystal.
When I first came into this position, I found that the students were very stressed about their exams and these high pressure programs that we're running in the high school. And I decided to do a needs assessment alongside our social emotional counselor. We have a full-time social emotional counselor on staff. Her and I worked together, and we found 3 different areas that the students were really needing additional supports. And so that was through options for counseling, a space for the students to go in times of mental crisis, and then also preventative care for mental health issues. So we came up with the idea for a mindfulness room. The location of it is away from the rest of the campus. It's upstairs. It's next to her office. So the proximity to emergency support is there, but it offers them a sense of privacy. For older students, sometimes they feel uncomfortable with their peers knowing that they're going for emotional, mental health issues. We didn't want them to feel shame. So we consulted with the students, we consulted with some experts, and for very, very low cost, we have in this room, we've got some carpet, we've got some pillows, we've got some posters that say you're exactly where you need to be, you belong here. And the students can come here in times of crisis. They can be excused from a class. They can just walk away if they need to come here. No questions asked. And besides that, there are yoga sessions that are run in here. There's guided meditation sessions, Tai Chi, and some of these are student-led. So it's a well-used room.
Thank you so much. Jess, what about at Loomis?
So I would say there are 2 things. One, I think, is a very general opportunity that I would note is that I think one of the most important things that we've done as a school is that we've every year invited other educators from our peer schools on campus to talk about wellness topics. And that has been instrumental, I think, in us generating new ideas and not having to reinvent the wheel. So I just want to highlight that. But I think within our campus community, one of the things that we've really shifted is that every week we make a point to bring together counselors, deans, academic deans, and our learning access student achievement group, along with our health center, together in one room to talk about any students of concern. And I think this has really allowed us to be proactive in putting in support and programming for our kids. And then we've tracked that. So we've assigned people out what the action plan is and the specific steps that are going to be taken for our kids. And I think we've really found that this has allowed us to get out in front of any major mental health crises within the community. It's been great.
That's great. And I think I think one of the things we're going to talk about today is how to support teachers' mental health and wellness so that they can support students' mental health. I feel like Kim spoke to that when she was talking about going in the room and people are like, oh, thank goodness you're here, right? So Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your initiative or a program that you feel like has worked really well.
Okay. So one of my greatest accomplishments, I think, has been spearheading the ruler approach across our entire district. Ruler stands for recognizing, understanding, labeling, expressing, and regulating emotions. It started with a book club, and I put the book that we used in the chat called Permission to Feel, which gave us a shared language and open, powerful conversations about that emotions matter mindset. And after that, I worked with district leaders and explained that teachers are really excited about this. They learned how to handle their own emotions and thought like, wow, I wish I had this when my kids were little, and they really want to go forward with this. So after getting some financial support, we moved step by step. So we formed these little ruler teams at every school. We trained alongside Yale. They have leadership team trainings. And what I did was I piloted lessons throughout the district to kind of like gain some excitement with students. And I asked for feedback, like how's the pacing? How's the engagement? How's the activities? And students were honest. Their feedback helped me really refine the lessons. And what I did was create these resources where teachers had the slides, the worksheets, the exemplars, the rationales, all in one space. So they didn't even have to go on the website. It was like right there. So now I see second graders using strategy posters for difficult emotions. The transformation is like SEL from a box on a shelf to like district-wide culture. And I'm really excited about that. And then at the same time, it was really critical to shift teaching and learning more broadly. So at the district and national level, I've really tried hard to reframe the question from what's wrong with you to what's happened to you with students who have dealt with trauma and have behavioral challenge. And I really want to help students and teachers understand that behavior is communication, that the brain under stress needs safety and trust, and that we could have the best curriculum in the world, but if we don't have those healing gestures and relationship-centered rooms, it's not going to work. So the advice I'd share, it would be to think long-term. Culture change doesn't happen in a semester or even a year. So our 5-year plan moved from a little book club to pilots, but also integrating strategies with research for trauma-sensitive teaching. So stay steady, listen to feedback, keep your vision clear, and SEL can, be something from a box to culture in an entire district for sure.
That's great. Yeah, so I love the diversity of experiences people are sharing. And I think, similar to Kim's district adopted the ruler program, and then we have Fairhaven that adopted the Wayfinder program. So Tracy, do you want to start talking about it? And then we'll have Tara follow you.
Sure. So I worked closely with our student services director, and we did some exploration looking for something that would provide tools for all the teachers across the district. We knew that at the secondary level, we were running advisory programs, but it just wasn't quite covering it. And it also relied very heavily on 1 or 2 adults to put everything together for the advisory that was happening. So we went to a conference and we discovered Wayfinder in Massachusetts. We have a large educators workshop. It's called NEASC, and we found Wayfinder representatives there first, and then we attended a conference, and then we went to more conferences hosted by Wayfinder and knew that this was the right platform for our district. We started to implement 2 years ago. We brought together a group of teachers. We actually asked for volunteers. We called them our SEL team. We got together in the summer and we looked at what was available and introduced that team to what Wayfinder could offer us across the district. And then we came up with a plan to implement. We also use the DESA screener. DESA is a universal screener that is available through Aperture Education. When we spoke to Wayfinder, they actually recommended that we continue to use that universal screener to provide an overview of what was happening with our students at different grade levels and in different buildings, socially and emotionally. And then we were able to use that data and think about what lessons we might want to focus on for each grade level as we slowly implemented Wayfinder across the district. It's a comprehensive platform with lessons. There's at least over 20 lessons per grade level. There's also activities that are quick warm-up type of activities, and there are resources for teachers as well for their personal lives, but also for working with students. And we're finding that the more we use it, the more we discover. And so we've been kind of reshaping things as we go over the last year or so.
Tara, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. So I saw a question in the chat that I'd like to kind of address because it relates to this. Sort of, how do you justify the investment and the resources? And I just want to say that my answer to this question kind of ties into that. First, it was sort of shifting as the district leader. I recognized that teachers really already feel like they have a ton on their plate, which they do, but this is sort of that, you know, sort of foundation that you can build that makes everything else more successful. And I think that kind of builds off of what I heard from a number of panelists today. And what we did was we created a sort of district mantra. So when I became superintendent, I was able to shift the idea that, you know, all kids all the time. Tracy was a big advocate for that. She was living it. Pockets of our district was living it. But then we decided to make it our district mantra. And essentially we used to say, stop focusing on the test results and start focusing on kids feeling a sense of belonging and trust, and the test scores will come. And they did. So when that started to happen and we could celebrate those small successes, people bought in. And one of the key things was dealing with our board. I know a lot of people have a board of directors or a school committee, and I see it as my job to keep those people away from our educators and have me just deal with them, right? They should be having that relationship. So there's sort of, I'm going to put it in the chat, but there is, through the commission that I was on, there was a list of levers that you would use. And one of them was to provide those resources, but also to create policies that match. So to take a look at your district policies or your school policies and just make sure, like, a handbook allows for the going out and playing, or just like aligning all of the things so that people couldn't put a roadblock in front of it. And that's what really allowed Wayfinder to kind of be created through Tracy and her team, but then got teachers to buy in because it was a little bit easier for them to anticipate how to handle things that they didn't feel were in there. They're like, we're not counselors. But when they saw lessons that were already developed for them, they thought, oh, we can follow that. And Tracy, working with the teams and kind of building them up, allowed for a lot of buy-in to the program. Now, it's not cheap. It's about $20,000 a year for a district our size. But it was very easy to defend putting that money into that resource when they started to see the wins we were getting. And even this week, we're doing a safety training. So, we deal with the threat of school shootings in America, right? Everyone deals with that. But one of the number one things that actually prevents that kind of thing is relationships. 90% of school shooters in America are kids who go to school there. So by having those relationships and we're going to use Wayfinder this week, as much as we're teaching them how to fend for themselves in a classroom, we're teaching them how to make better relationships with every single child. And we're making them think about profiles of kids that they struggle connecting with. And we're reminding them that when they're the hardest to love, they need it the most. So that's kind of our mantra, but Wayfinder has really paired nicely with our thinking, but made it manageable for a teacher to utilize the resources in a way that is benefiting kids.
That was super helpful. Thank you so much, Tara. And I think you answered some questions that were in the chat. Tim, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what Tara said. Sometimes when you're in a district where there's high achievement, parents think there's less need for SEL. And we mentioned a teacher piece too. Sometimes teachers are leery of adding more to their plate. One of the things that we did with our partner agency, they're called Build a Better You Family Services. They're a local community agency that does our mental health work, and we put a line item in the budget for them, and it's like a special. So our students go to group therapy weekly as if they would go to art or music or any other extracurricular activity. and that takes the pressure off the teacher. Our teachers are fully bought in because of other strategies, but this also helps them to buy in, and that they're not the ones doing all the work, and they partner with the agency next door, and the agency next door actually takes the kids, so the teachers get a little bit more break time. So that's another piece that I think has helped us. And there's so much research out there today to show how students learn better when they feel healthy and safe and appreciated and part of the work. So it doesn't take much of a Google search to find some of that research, and I can also provide some in the chat too, which will help parents and district, personnel and or boards to understand the necessity of SEL work in our schools.
Yeah, Kim just put an article from Castle with research, and I'm sure it's more than one article, it's probably multiple articles. So thank you, Kim. It's at the bottom of the chat. Tracy, go ahead.
I just wanted to add to, especially, you just said Kim referenced Castle and put that information in the chat. Castle has its core competencies, and I actually had put together something, the connections between, so Castle has 5 core competencies, and I don't want to read them all because of time, but DESA, that universal screener that I referred to earlier, the competencies that DESA is screening for line up exactly with Castle, with one addition, which is optimistic thinking. And then the waypoints, which is what Wayfinder calls their core competencies, line up with Castle and also with DESA. They're not exactly the same names, but they're synonymous with. So, for example, responsible decision-making, that in waypoints, you could refer to that as agency or self-awareness. So the alignment between those tools is really, really tight. And that helps us, I think, really inform teachers and also help the work that we're doing with students.
Thank you. There's a question in the Q&A that I think is interesting. How do we deal with the lack of seriousness of our students have when SEL activities are implemented in class? So for those of you that are implementing or working with teachers, is there advice that you give them to help them implement? Kim, go ahead.
So I have this, I have dealt with this more at the middle and high school level right now, as we are embedding social emotional learning. And I really just start with the adults. And if the adults really care about it and really understand it, and they can tell the students, yes, this is going to seem really silly. We don't talk about our feelings, but emotions matter and they impact everything. And I'm going to show you, and we're going to practice. So I think the approach, like if we really have our teachers buy in and they really understand like the power of social emotional learning. And I teach brain science too. Like if kids are coming in with trauma and they are worried about, if their father's incarcerated or, where they're going to eat the next day, their brains aren't ready to learn. So I say, imagine when your most stressful time, like you can't remember what you did, what you happened, you can't get through the day. So for students, it's the same thing. So we can give them these tools so that they can relax their brain, their thinking brain can light up once they're calm. And that's where the relationships and all of it. But I think it's a complete like buy-in. And I try not to say it's a curriculum. I more say emotions matter in their relationship-centered classrooms. So yeah.
Thank you. We'll go Crystal and then Tracy.
I hope my audio is okay. The power went out and the generator's going in the background. Thanks to what you were saying there. The root causes of stress is something that I look towards with the older students in students who are doing the IGCSE, the IB. These are very high stress exam boards. And so trying to find the root causes of the stress tends to be in executive functioning challenges that young people experience. And so we have done some professional development sessions with the neuroscientists on how the teenage brain functions and how learning works for them. And then I also track all the major assessments on a calendar, and we try to ensure that the students all have access to it and understand that there's periodic assessments throughout the year. If there is a student who is struggling with that stress level, they have every right to go and see the social emotional counselor, and she's able to override teachers' assignments and home learning in order to protect the social emotional needs of the students. This is something that the students have taken very seriously. And they're far more engaged in the academics because they're able to track and see where their assignments are coming up. And I think working with our student success department and ensuring that we are supporting students in developing some of the skills necessary to thrive in academic contexts really helps to boost their self-esteem and reduce the social emotional problems.
Thank you. And that actually responds to a question that someone sent in prior to the webinar, which is how do you help students manage stress during periods of intense academic work? And I think those ideas of like putting the assessments on a calendar, like having students be able to talk to the counselor if they feel like they're overwhelmed. I know that's an issue, with public schools in the U.S. as well, is that there's a lot of stress and a lot of intense periods of time when students have different exams going on. So it's important to think about that. Tim, did you have a thought about the SEL implementation of activities in the classroom?
Sure. I was thinking, although we run an elementary school, we spend a lot of time working with high schools as well. And we actually have a high school coming out today to work with our elementary school students. And it's an SEL high school classroom that's coming out. And their goal was to create activities for our students to help teach them teamwork. So they had a goal. It was a project-based learning experience for this group of SEL students from a local high school called Impact Academy. But we also have had high school students build benches to put in a local park. We've had them take martial arts that has a SEL focus. Same with theater and art. So there are many things that we can do to bring to trick students into coming, although it's really not that. They sign up for what they want, and then we bring the SEL component to that, and it helps bring their sense of communication, conflict resolution, resiliency. Those things are built into those extracurriculars that attract the students. So it's not just an activity on the side that's called SEL. Sometimes we use these other projects to engage and then bring the SEL within those projects.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to shift the conversation to really talk about teachers for a minute, because I think, one of the most important things is, what are some ways that you support teachers in their own mental health and wellness, and then that helps them to meet the needs of their students. So, Jess, can we start with you with that? Can you talk a little bit about how you're supporting teachers and helping them to be able to then support their students?
Yeah, I mean, we actually, in faculty meetings this year, we've implemented at the end of our faculty meetings, we spend some time doing case studies with the whole faculty. And so we will often present, it's often around wellness topics, mental health topics, and giving teachers tools that they can begin to use within their classroom environment. We're also trying to provide outside programming, so opportunities for mindful moments throughout the day where people can come over and utilize the space. Like our art teacher had a show, and then in the presentation of all the art, there was also mindful moment, right? So lots of different ways that we're trying to give our students tools to be able to regulate their emotions. We like Tim have an outdoor classroom kit in which teachers can go and pick up the collapsible chairs and go and teach outside if they feel like they want to provide that opportunity for their students to be able to learn in an environment outside of the classroom. And we've also used a student wellness council to really let their voices be heard, especially with the high school kids, to find out what is pressing them and what are some of the programming that they'd like to see and what do they want their teachers to know. So in a seminar that I teach, we start every class with a 2 to 5 minute mindful moment. And that's been, we do that because feedback from students was this is helpful to us. So we've really tried hard to get student voices, at least in the high school level, involved in what they say is helpful, and then have found ways to communicate and try and support our faculty in doing the work.
That's great. Kim, you have your hand up, but I'm not sure if it was from this one or the other one. Do you want to, is it the last one? Okay, so let's go to Crystal, and then if you have another thought, we can.
Yeah, this is a very big question, or a very big response too. I'm struggling to think about how to contain it, because living in Cuba these days, I don't know how many people are aware of some of the challenges that we face. But teacher well-being must be at the forefront of everything that I do. The teachers have to be okay. If they're not okay, because they haven't slept the night before because there's been no power and it's 36 degrees, and if they're not okay, the kids aren't okay. And so we try really hard to be really flexible with teacher needs. If somebody needs to come in late, there's no questions asked. If somebody needs the day off, there's no questions asked. But we've also included, for example, there's a teacher choir. There's so many health benefits with singing in a choir that every Friday afternoon, there's an opportunity for teachers to sing in that choir or to join yoga or Tai Chi alongside the students in the extracurricular program. Those are just a couple of examples of how we're doing things here, but this is so extremely important to be sure that we're considering the adults in the school as they're the ones who care for the children.
That's great. Tara, I'm going to go to you and then back to Tim.
It'd be nice if I could find the mute button sometimes. So I just wanted to mention that we actually brought in a professor from Yale, and I wanted to just bring this up. I'm going to put a link in the box here in the chat. But Lori Santos, she's a professor at Yale, but she has a podcast that you could refer your teachers to. She also has an online course that's free. But we had her come and speak to the teachers, and it was really fantastic because it helped them focus on controlling their own happiness and their own ability to be connected to one another, to people around them. But when I send this link, you can just look at the courses. There's a free Coursera you sign up for. You do it at your own pace, but there's mini lessons. But a lot of it's the science behind happiness. So for one example that a lot of people already know about, if you studied any psychology, is, when an Olympic medalist wins a gold, it's harder to be the silver medalist than the bronze, because when you get the bronze, you're actually just happy you got on the podium. Where if you're a silver medalist, you're a little bit more like, how close was I, right? So the concept is really using brain science. She studied chimpanzees. She's just brilliant researcher, but she ties it to overall happiness. During COVID, she was on every major national, you name it, she was all over the news, but she's still very current, and I think you could just easily share some of those snippets with staff in a faculty meeting for yourself, for your friends, and it could go a long way. So I'll share that with you in the comments.
Put it in the chat. Thank you. Tim?
Yeah, I just want to add two very brief strategies in. One is we worked very hard this year to try to get a half day on Friday where at least one teacher gets to either collaborate, go home early, go to happy hour, whatever it needs to be on Fridays. And that just is a little piece of, well-being for the teacher to know that because our teachers come from the community that we serve. We're training up teachers from within the community. So the same adverse experiences that our children are experiencing, our teachers are often experiencing and more, because they're also carrying the weight of all the children in the classroom. So that's one piece. We try to provide these opportunities to get teachers free to explore their own teaching and learning. And then the other piece is once a month on Saturdays, we come together in the morning for breakfast. Our parents have an evening meal once a month. Our teachers have a breakfast once a month. And during that time, the whole focus is on their social emotional growth. And we also provide a stipend. So they don't just have to come the extra day, they get a stipend as well. So we're always trying to treat our teachers as best we can. And our mantra, another little brief strategy just in the language, because language is important, that we're building relationships to last a lifetime. And if that's your goal, you're not just a teacher, you're not just a worker, you're not just a student, but you're someone who we're going to be engaged with in relationship from now until eternity, then it's a different mindset in terms of how we treat each other. So these are all just little strategies that we use to try to provide as much support to our teachers as possible. Because I agree with everybody on the panel who says, Crystal mentioned it as well, if you don't have great teachers, if you don't have healthy teachers, then it's going to be very hard to have a healthy school.
Thank you. And I think someone had said this in the chat, but I think often I would assume that you would do some of the social and emotional activities with teachers before you're asking them to do them with students, right? You're modeling for them sort of this is the way it's going to go, and then they can then take that and do that in their classes. And I'm sure that's a key component of success for them as they become more comfortable. When I was a principal, we, instituted advisory, and it wasn't quite as detailed in terms of these kinds of lessons, but for some teachers, it's very difficult to really talk to kids about anything but their content, right? Their content area, they felt very comfortable, but we're now asking teachers to really engage with kids on a deeper level and help them, to really address some of these social and emotional issues. And for some teachers, that is not a comfortable place to be. So I think trying to help teachers to talk about these things, to do the activities with one another. And I don't think it's because teachers don't care about kids. I just think it's because it hasn't always been, something that they've done, and so they're not as comfortable with it. Kim, do you have any other thoughts about strategies that you use as you work with teachers across the district to implement these activities with their kids?
Yeah, so my approach is to really work alongside teachers. I know from my own years that class can be very overwhelming. So when I go in, I model lessons with them, I co-teach, and I help kind of set up routines to make their classrooms more calmer and connected so they can actually feel it. So in elementary school, that looks like setting up morning bins in classroom to replace morning work so that children come in and there are toys at each table. They play, they connect, and the teacher at that point can check in with the students and say hello to them. And it just is a great soft start. And a lot of teachers are swapping out those worksheets, which were just barely busy work so they could take attendance, into something that's more interactive. I've also gone in and modeled daily community circles. So let's circle up. I'm curious about you. I want to see all your beautiful faces looking at me. I'm not up here and you're not down there. And I'm going to ask you a question like, what's your favorite animal at the zoo? And pass the piece. And eventually what happens is students get to know each other. They become more connected naturally. They build that empathy. If someone says something sad, I model, oh, let's give Joseph a heart. His dog died. So again, it's like that, all of these things. And then we also support students in creating individual strategy posters for emotion regulation. So all these choices you have to regulate your emotions, like what works for you. We're going to keep this poster in your desk in times of difficulty. What do you want to do? Oh, I want to go for a walk. Okay, that's on your poster. Great. And in the meantime, when I'm modeling this, I'm also putting the bug in the teacher's ear. Like, yeah, there are a lot of strategies you can pick from. And oh my gosh, it is nice to connect. Wow, what a difference starting with a paper than, talking with a colleague in the morning. I do that too, right? So it's like that process of modeling, but also like that eye-opening. At the middle school, the support looks a little different in the high school. So unfortunately, we've had some teen suicides. So I did get trained as a youth mental health first aider, which means that I help teachers recognize signs and symptoms of mental health challenges and how to respond, whether it's a crisis or whether it's just they need support. And a big part of the work has been helping teachers see teaching and learning in a new way, recognizing that stress and trauma affect the brain. We're in a school district where there's a lot of that. Behavior is a communication for a need, and that safety and trust are essential. So teachers often tell me that this mindset has actually given them more tools to connect. One of the best tools that I did at a trauma training last week, is I asked the teachers to pick the student that comes to their head that's the most challenging, the one that they wish almost was absent that day, the one that they feel like they're, in their way of teaching. And it's called a 2x10 strategy. And I asked them to take 2 minutes for 10 days, approach that student and converse with them on anything other than school. And in the 2 minutes is going to seem very long in the beginning, but at the 10th day, you're going to see that there's a shift. You connected with them. They trust you. You won't necessarily see the whole behavior thing, dissipate, but the idea is like they feel connected and it plants that seed. So that's one of the biggest strategies that has helped. I give teachers this snack-sized PD. Every month I put something in their mailbox as a little tip with a snack, and I record a weekly guided meditation for them based on like what I hear in the district. And I'll stop because I could go on and I really want to
Yeah,
stop.
and I think, but I think, I mean, this idea that, I mean, Kim's whole job, right? Her whole job is to provide this support for teachers in her district, and that is it's an amazing resource, you know, and for the district, I think, back to Tara's point, like prioritizing the money for a person like Kim or a program like Wayfinder or someone like Tracy, who's, you know, really that is their main focus, like really gives a lot of dividends because you are providing the support that teachers need to really center that work. Tracy, go ahead.
I was just going to add, as far as resources, I think one of the things that I'm finding works best, at least for our district, is helping teachers make the connection between the SEL work that we're asking them to consider doing and the work that they're already doing, because it's really become common for it to be, you know, another thing that we're doing. I think somebody else referenced that, or I feel like it's another acronym. We profile the learner, that's POL. We have one of our initiatives is universally designed learning, that's UDL, SEL. So it's another acronym, it's another thing. And making the connections, we had Katie Novak come to our district as well. She is the head of the face of UDL Now. That's her book, and I'll put that in the chat. She came to the district, she made the connections between UDL and SEL, and some of those are available as free resources as well. And we also worked with and brought in Jess Minahan, and she's a behavioralist, and she has a great book. And we purchased, through the support of Superintendent Kohler, we purchased a copy of that book for the entire district, and also a copy of UDL Now. And I think it's measures like that. Unfortunately, we can't guarantee that everyone has time to look at those resources and is actually, you know, incorporating them at the same level across the district, but it's worth it to continue to support with some of those resources. Yeah, so I'll put some of those in the chat too.
Great. Kim, could you describe the 2x10 strategy in the chat? Could you just write that out? Because somebody asked about it, and I think it would be awesome to have that in there. Okay, Tara, before I let you, before we go on to you, I just want to try to summarize some of the things that we've heard today, and then just give all of our panelists sort of a last word, because we're coming down to 10 minutes. So I think, you know, there's a couple of many different thoughts. One idea is get outside, right? Get your kids outside, whatever that looks like, give them a chance to interact with nature. Have a mindfulness room, a place where kids can go out for crisis, whatever that looks like. Maybe there's one for teachers and there's one for kids, right? Both of those things. Bring educators together in celebration for their own mental health, right? So whether that's through yoga, whether it's through breakfasts, whether it's through, you know, the choir, like find ways to support teachers in their own mental health through activities that will sort of feed their soul. Have team meetings about students of concern. Jess talked about sort of bringing together the people at the table. Make sure you're talking about those students and tracking the interventions that are happening for them and putting those together. You might want to look into a school or district-wide wellness curriculum like Wayfinder or Ruler that has lessons that teachers can deliver to students, and that can help teachers to sort of get their own toolbox of strategies that they can use in the classroom. And using case studies. I think that's super interesting that Jess brought up this idea of really thinking about where are students coming from. And I think that's related to this idea of trauma-informed instructional strategies of like, how do we work with students in the classroom? The UDL, under Universal Design for Learning, this really sets forth strategies where as teachers interact with students, they're giving them supportive ways in which to interact with the content and the curriculum. So I think thinking about that idea of where, and Tim talked about this a lot, where are students coming from? What have they experienced just this morning in their lives that they're bringing with them into the classroom? So we're really helping teachers to think about students' backgrounds and what they're experiencing on a daily basis and how that is presenting, as Kim said, as a behavior, but it's really communicating a need that they have based on, their own experiences that they're experiencing. So I'm just trying to kind of summarize our conversation today. I know there's been a lot of information, a lot that's been shared in the chat, but I really appreciate it. I'd love to give all the panelists, at least one more chance to sort of speak and share. Like if you had one piece of advice or a next step that you would give to our audience today, kind of what would that be? And Tracy, we'll start with you and you can share your follow-up that you were going to say, and then, any last words that you have for our audience today.
I guess my advice would be, as somebody leading the work, there's always, learning is always happening. So the more I'm doing the work, the more I'm meeting with teachers and district leaders, and building principals, the more I'm learning. I think staffs change every year, people change. I mean, we're all dealing with life, so as are the students. So I think constantly checking in. I mean, for myself, this is something that this would be a goal for me personally, is to check in more. I think it's too easy to have the tools and the resources and the faculty meetings and the PD and bring in speakers, but without checking in constantly with teams from each building, with each building principal, I think it's easy for it to kind of fall into the background a little bit when it needs to stay in the foreground. I think that's probably my last, yeah.
You got to keep your pulse on it, right? Keep an eye on it.
Yes.
All right, Tara?
I was just going to say, from a district leader lens, so any of you out there who have a role in more of that decision-making space, two things. One is, don't wait for 100% of the people to be on board. I saw a lot of questions revolved around, what about this group of kids? What about this group of kids? Constantly sticking with the plan, eventually they'll get there. And I've often heard the research suggest that if you have 20% of people buying in, it's time to go. Just, I'm telling you, do it and push the needle. And like you heard Kim say about the 2 minutes for 10 people, for 10 days, that type of thing, leaning into the challenges is critical. And then the second piece I would say is, as a leader, your budget document really reflects your core beliefs. And I suggest that you make sure that I feel very proud that today, if you read our budget document, you would know what we're about. And I would just say, please, please, please invest in your adults to be able to do the work for your kids to reach them all. That's all.
Thank you so much. I think that's so helpful. Jess and Crystal and Tim?
I would just say that, at least, my school's a little bit different. We're a 9 through 12 boarding school. And I think for us, our wellness work is so student-centered that the student voice has to be a part of it. So we can have a meditation room, but if it's not what our students want and they're not going to use it, then it doesn't make sense for us. So I would just encourage you to make sure that you have a student wellness council and that you are listening to what the students want. And we invite some faculty members to be a part of that council too. So it feels like it's good work that we're doing and we're hearing.
Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. I missed that in my summary. Thank you for reminding us. Tim? Or did I say Crystal? Sorry, I said Crystal. Go ahead.
I was going to say exactly what Jess said. It's so important to look to your student leadership because they know what they need. And if they can bring these needs to you and they see that you're responsive to it, that you care about them, they will, their response is amazing. So look to your students, look to your student leaders and involve them in the process. It's so important.
Great. Tim?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a little counseling for us all and for myself. I'm gonna say seek balance. We carry so much. We're all district leaders or teachers. We carry the weight of our students. Get to know your students. We talked about that relationship, but in the process of getting to know them, we get to know all about them. And then a lot of that is waiting. So I once heard a story of a principal who would, get out of school every day, walk up to his house, and you would walk up to a bush and do this. And one day the neighbor asked, why do you do this at the bush before you walk into the house every day? And he said, because I'm about to go see my family and I can't bring my work into the house because I won't have good balance. And I can't emphasize that enough. We carry so much. Take time to yourself and really try to understand, release some of the things that you carry every day so you can have that good work-life balance, because we as educational leaders and teachers need to have that in order to best support those relationships that are so important to us in our school buildings.
Very well said. Thank you, Tim. All right, Kim, last word.
Oh, geez. Okay. So, if I could give you any advice, if you're starting something as big as this, I would support teachers as whole people. I would acknowledge their efforts and all the things that they already do. And I would start with the teachers that are super excited about the work, because that's what I did. I really started with a group of 17 teachers in the district, and they were so excited that it just naturally kind of rippled. It wasn't a 5-year plan initially. So just, understand, give them the relationships that we want to give our students, and give them that trust. And then their brains will settle a little so they can really sound to their students.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all. And I would just say, I hope that we see some of you as presenters at our future showcases, our annual conferences. The things that you have presented, I think will be so beneficial in a longer session for educators. So really look forward to continuing the conversation with you. And I'll turn it back over to Beth to close up for the day.
Great. Thank you, Allison, and thank you to our panelists and our participants for joining us. It's been a really exhilarating morning, and as one participant noted in the chat, she's ready to take her kids outside, so maybe we will all head outside for a second cup of coffee. Thank you again.